Do you trust the government? Do you trust the men and women who wear a badge and are sworn to protect and serve? Have you had encounters with the Austin Police Department? If you are a police officer, what is it like to feel the public may not trust you? What happens when good cops go bad? Today on Access News, we'll be asking the Chief of Police, Chief Art Acevedo, those questions and more. You're watching Access News, hands-on news. Access News is pleased to welcome Art Acevedo, the Chief of Police here in Austin. He became Chief of Police in 2007 and is the first Hispanic to lead the police force. He has more than 20 years of law enforcement experience, and he's been called a change agent to restore public trust and eliminate police corruption. In other words, he tries to make the thin blue line thinner. Welcome to Access News, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I know right now with all the fires happening in Bastrop, it's really an awful situation. I know 1,500 homes have been lost and thousands of acres have been burned. What can we do to help prevent future fires like this?
Well, first, I think it's important for the community to realize you need to protect your own home by building a natural fire wall around it, and that is remove dry brush away from your home, at least 20 feet, 25 feet. If you're going to have grass, try to water it. People forget you can still water by hand, even with the water restrictions. And if you see dead things, remove it, because all that is fuel for the fire. And the homes that have survived in Bastrop, you'll see everything around them burnt down, but the people that did those things, their home survived, miraculously.
So there are some homes that made it through the fire because they were watering their yard and removing the brush?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in other states, you're required by law to remove brush, clear brush, and to create that natural fire break in case of brush fires. In this case, it wasn't a brush fire, it's a firestorm. It was pretty bad. I was out there for several days and it was very sad to see.
Really sorry to hear that. We're hoping that everyone recovers quickly. I also want to ask a little bit about the trust of the police department. Why do we often hear about the public not trusting the police departments?
Well, I don't think it's just police departments. People don't trust government right now. If you look at the trust of government, it is an all-time historical low, and I think some of it's well-deserved. But I think what you're talking about in your intro, that we're trying to thin the thin blue line further. What I want to do is strengthen by holding people accountable, by having high standards, by being transparent, and by engaging the community like we're doing here today. I think that that's where you help build bridges and overcome the mistrust.
Absolutely. And like I said in the intro, you know, people call you a change agent.
Yeah.
And you lead change. How do you feel like you've led up to that name?
I think that throughout my career, I've been known to, when I see a problem, I fix it. I don't believe you just look the other way, because a problem that's this big, you know, will continue to grow if you don't address it quickly, honestly, and very aggressively. And so, no, it's, that life is about making positive change, and that's what we try to do in the Austin Police Department.
So are you saying that the thin blue line here in Austin has become thinner?
No, I think that it's become better. I think if you look at the police department in 2007, before this current executive team, leadership team came together, and you look at it today, it's totally different department. We have a totally different philosophy. I've got Anna Sabana, our public information manager, who's sitting here in the audience with us today, who has helped us really transform the department from one that was very closed to one that's very open. I mean, if we can share information, we do. We're not the CIA, we don't hide things, and so we've become very transparent. I think it's really made a difference.
I think very often that the public kind of clumps all of the police department, CIA, FBI, all that into one group, and I can understand that probably happens. The public distrust that does occur, does that make your job more difficult, and what would that feel like?
Well, I will say this, that if without public trust, we can't do our jobs. And I really believe that transparency breeds trust, trust breeds cooperation, and cooperation breeds safety in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our schools. And so that's why I think it's important for us to really engage one another. There are going to be times when we have different perspectives, but I think we can agree to disagree in a respectful manner sometimes.
That makes me think of one situation that happened in 2009. That was June of 2009. A woman named Esther Valdez. I'm not sure if you remember, but it was a deaf woman, and she was walking along the street, and a police officer, Officer Willis, yelled for her to stop walking, but obviously she didn't hear Officer Willis, and so the result ended up being that she was arrested for resisting arrest. So what has your department done since then to prevent that kind of misunderstanding? Because Austin has such a large deaf community.
We have a program called the Immersion Program, which is a program that requires our cadets and our officers to go into different communities, communities of color, the deaf community, people with other physical handicaps, so they can learn what the challenges are and they can learn how to better serve that community. But even in that instance, I think it's important even for members of the deaf community to know that you may not be able to hear, but the officer doesn't. And if an officer puts hands on you to tell you to stop, don't start doing this and looking like you're resisting, because in his mind, it appears that you're resisting. And so you have to be patient. So what should you do
instead?
I would, if the officer puts a hands on you, just cooperate, don't pull away until things calm down, and then you can very quickly through sign language or through mannerisms that I don't hear.
It's really tough to do,
right.
To stay calm, and
Right, it is, but you have to also, it's a two-way, it's two different perspectives. From the officer's mind, you don't have a sign on you that says, I don't hear. So I think sometimes we don't put our shoes in the other person's feet, if you understand what I'm saying? So I would just say, once the officer knows, then everything will calm down. So you'll have a chance to explain the challenge, and we're smart. We carry notebooks with us. We have the ability to call in translators. So just be patient and just realize that the officer doesn't know that you have a challenge, but once they do, we can work on the communication.
I think it's really important that both the deaf community and the police officers understand the potential of misunderstandings.
Absolutely.
And it's really the responsibility of both to make that communication effective. I know that my husband, when he was younger, his father was given a card, and he carried along with him that said, "I am deaf." And if he was pulled over, he would show that card. I'm not sure if that's appropriate these days or not, but would that help, something like that, a police officer? Some kind of card ready to just present?
Absolutely, and I'll never forget, as a young police officer myself, I went to a car crash scene, and there was two guys there. The other party had already left, and the story that these two speaking and hearing individuals are telling me didn't quite add up, but And then when I went to the hospital, the other driver was a person that couldn't speak and had hearing issues. So clearly what these guys were hoping is that I wouldn't take the time to get to hear her side of the story. And so I actually spent an extra hour at the hospital, waited till I got an American Sign Language interpreter. And once she was able to communicate her side of the story, it was clear to me that they tried to take advantage. And I'm just happy that we had the ability to call in resources like this young lady to my right to make sure we got it right and that no injustice occurred out there. So we try, and we're not going to be perfect, but I think that what we can do is learn from each other and move ahead, forge ahead together.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing effort, really.
Absolutely.
And as you know, here on Access News, we talk about our American founding documents and through a segment called A More Perfect Union. And let's go ahead and take a few minutes to watch Don Miller and see what he has to say.
What is the rule of law? Thanks, Tamara. Hi, I'm Don Miller. Today, we communicate with email, telephone, video phones, texting, snail mail, blogs, and the internet. But the only way the founders could meet to discuss and debate as a group was to sit in a room face to face. This was no easy task to get the representatives of the 13 colonies together. When they finally did get together, they had to write down what they wanted in a new government. They managed to meet face to face in 1774, calling themselves the First Continental Congress, which formed the basis of what was to become the United States of America. Let's watch.
Elected representatives from 12 of the 13 colonies met from September 5th to October 26th here at Philadelphia's Carpenter Hall. These representatives formed a Congress that would essentially govern America for the next 15 years. It was 1774, and though the delegates were not entirely clear as to the First Continental Congress's ultimate purpose, in retrospect, they inaugurated the United States of America. In response to the Boston Tea Party, the British Parliament enacted a series of provocative laws dubbed the Intolerable Acts by the colonists. This legislation punished Boston and re-established British authority over the entire colony. The last, and most inflammatory act, required that colonists quarter British troops in their homes. At the opening of the First Continental Congress, Patrick Henry, delegate from Virginia, addressed the delegates with these electrifying words.
The distinctions between Virginians, Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers, and New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American.
By the time Congress adjourned, resolutions were passed opposing the Intolerable Acts, and 10 colonial rights were spelled out, including the right to life, liberty, and property. When the delegates to the Congress, such as Sam Adams, John Adams, and George Washington, left Carpenter Hall, the American colonies had acted as a single nation for the first time. While these men of vision and talent waited for the British response to their proclamations, the fight had already begun as troops from both sides moved for advantage.
What would you do when confronted with unfair and unjust laws? The colonists tried to explain their frustration to the King of England and to the British people, but were ignored. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice. These words are found in the Declaration of Independence and represent those frustrations and the necessity of separating from Great Britain. What would you do if you disagree with our laws? What can we do? Share your opinions. Join the discussion at our website, accessnews.us. .us for United States. What do you think? For Access News, I'm Don Miller. What is the rule of law? Everyone must follow the law. The government must obey the law, and no one is above the law.
Thank you, Don. We're here chatting with Chief of Police Art Acevedo on Access News. Chief, thanks for being with us here today.
Oh, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about something you mentioned earlier, cooperating with the police. Recently, Rick Perry, our governor, mentioned that he believes local police should be able to use their discretion to question people related to their immigration status, whether they've been pulled over or witness to a crime. Opponents feel like that could lead to racial profiling, or maybe make people more afraid and not cooperate with the police, not be willing to report crimes, and so forth. So I'm curious your opinion on that, about Austin police being able to question people about their immigration status.
Well, I think my position and the position of most of the police chiefs of the major police departments in the country is very clear. I actually have written editorials about it, or commentary, and testified in the legislature against the sanctuary city laws. We're here to keep people safe, and when you discourage people that are victims of crime or witnesses to crime from cooperating from the police, that hurts us all. We don't have the resources, we don't have the time to become immigration agents, and I'm very thankful that as the result of the police chief standing up against that bad legislation, because it was nothing but politics, is not good public policy, that we were able to kill that law, and I hope it doesn't come back again, because it really does ultimately hurt public safety.
I actually agree with you on that one. I also wanted to ask you a question about the public involvement with police.
Yeah.
There is an office called the Office of Public Monitor.
Police
the
monitor.
Police Monitor.
Yes.
Right, OPM. And there's a category of 7 people called the Citizen Review Panel.
Correct.
And so they're able to get involved with investigations and internal affairs when there's an incident that happens.
Correct.
And they can make recommendations for results and that sort of thing. So my question for you is, I know that that panel can make recommendations. However, they don't have subpoena power.
Right.
So do they really have much influence? Do they really have much power?
Well, I mean, they have a voice. And they have a voice that, and they have 2 things. They have access to the files in terms of the investigation. They have access to and the ability to question the investigators. And I think the most important thing is they have a voice to, as a group of community members, to weigh in. And I think it's important because we had the Nathaniel Sanders shooting incident. Nathaniel Sanders was shot by Officer Leonardo Quintana, former Officer Leonardo Quintana, and I think it's really important for this community to remember that the Citizens Review Panel and even the Office of Police Monitor weighed in even after the Key Point report, that controversial report, and they still said that Officer Quintana, when he used deadly force, had done so in a lawful manner. And they didn't even recommend that I fire him. They only recommended a 90-day suspension, which I think is important for people to keep that perspective, because some would have you believe that he committed a murder or something out there, which is simply not the truth.
So I'm wondering if those kinds of conflicts could be better resolved if you gave the panel subpoena power.
To me, that would just be dealing with perception instead of reality, because at the end of the day, I'm going to make the decision. We're not hiding anything. They already have access to all the evidence. The police monitor is at the actual shooting scene, seeing with her own eyes, participating with the police chief. And, you know, what's interesting is that people think we have this huge problem here, when the reality, the facts are that this police department uses deadly force much less than most major police departments. You're from Washington, D.C. I can guarantee you they shoot at people a lot more than we do. And I think people need to realize that I've fired 3 officers since I've been here for excessive force. So I follow the law, I follow policy, I follow procedures. That's how I decide what to do, because when you lead through intellect and not through emotion. And that's the problem. Sometimes people get emotional and they don't see the facts, they don't want to hear the facts. So the facts are that we rarely use deadly force, and the facts are that I have fired 3 officers when their force was not appropriate.
I can imagine that was a very difficult situation for you to be in. It's hard to face some of those issues, and at the same time you have to, you're trying to gain the trust of the public. I want to ask you about what we can do as citizens to help the police department better protect our communities.
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to be a good neighbor. You have to be a nosy neighbor. When you see a car driving around your neighborhood that you've never seen before, and when you see people looking in the windows, call the police. Call us out, because that's what life's about, is helping one another. Secondly, don't make yourself an easy target. If you're a woman and you are going into a parking lot to get into your vehicle, don't have your keys in a purse and at night looking for your keys. Be ready. Have your key out. Walk up, unlock your car, get in, lock the door, and go on with your business. Lock your doors at home. Lock your garage. Don't leave your garage door open. So a lot of good common sense and good judgment goes a long way.
Really, one thing we have to remember is that common sense is not always common. So we
Yes.
really need to emphasize that.
Believe me, I know. and for ladies especially, downtown, everybody asks, do we have a safe downtown? We have one of the safest downtowns in the country. What will leave you to not being safe is when you go out and you get drunk, and now you're stumbling down the street, you are much more likely to become a victim of crime when they see an easy target than to somebody that's using good sense. Don't be running a trail in the middle of the night at night by yourself with no one around, because you're just going to make yourself a target. It's just, again, common sense and good judgment goes a long way.
Thank you, really. I appreciate those words of advice, and I hope our audience is going to take your advice to heart. Thank you for being here with us today on Access News.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed my appearance, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You can learn more about the Austin Police Department at their website, ci.austin.tx.us/police, and at our website, accessnews.us, where you can ask questions and share your comments and opinions. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. One beautiful thing about America is that we, the people, have power. The more we know, the better decisions that we can make. For Access News, I'm Tamara, and that's Austin. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Executive producers Devorah Ben-Moshe, Ken Hurley. With funding from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation through the Knight Community Information Challenge. Supported by the Austin Community Foundation, fostering philanthropy in Austin for 35 years. The Austin Community Foundation, for now and forever. Created and written by Devorah Ben-Moshe, Ken Hurley. Hosted by Tamara Suiter-Ocuto. Interpreter for Tamara Suiter-Ocuto, Jennifer Stoker. Segment host for A More Perfect Union, Don Miller. Voicing for Don Miller, Ken Hurley. Crew, Producer Linda Latowski, Director Editor Orlando Lopez, 3D Animation Doug Gray, Technical Director Carla Saldana, Director of Photography Brian Blake, Assistant to the Producer Susan Harper, Original Music Aaron Jake, Camera Doug Gray, Tim O'Neill, Ross Wilsey, Production Sound Mixer Rod Simonson, Teleprompter Operator Brandon Taj Mora. Additional crew, photographers Eve Granick, Devore Ben-Moshe, intern Brandon Taj Mora. Additional interpreters Jacob Stacy, Tracy Hughley, Jessica Graves. Website developed by Electric Leaf, Jonathan Braden. Closed captioning provided by CPC, Closed Captioning and Subtitle Services. Civic Education video segments provided by Ambrose Video Publishing. Special thanks to Susan Murnett, Lisa Williams, Mary Ben Ramsey, Monica Williams, Janice Kelklar, Paula Lang, Jeff Garvey. Claire Bugan, Bobby Guerrera, Russell Harvard, Cynthia Foss, Bill Stotesbury, Caitlin Mack, Yitzhak Ben-Moshe, Bobby Nord, Kenneth Gladish.
Hi, I'm Tamara, host of Access News. Join me as I talk with renowned scientists, community advocates, powerful business leaders, and politicians from both sides of the aisle. Police Chief Art Acevedo. He works to provide law and order that protects our community. Join me each Sunday at 1 p.m. on KLRU Austin for Access News, Hands-On News.